Welcome to Positively Nerdy number 101, Comics with Ketchup.
What you got there, a new comic book?
Old comic book.
You want to catch me up?
You want some ketchup? Ketchup. Ketchup.
I got 300 years of ketchup learning to do.
A man pops out for a moment to evacuate his bowels and catch up on the adventures of the Cape Crusader.
Everybody getting this so far? You want to catch me up again?
Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new episode of Positively Nerdy and the latest installment of Comics with Ketchup. That's right, Comics with Ketchup is the show where we go back and catch up on sometimes random comics, major story arcs, graphic novels that I finally read, anything and anything that isn't basically covered in the bi-monthly comic book review segments that is comic related. And this month we have a very random selection of back issues. I don't know if you guys have Five Belows near you, and even if you do, there's no guarantee that they have what my Five Below has. And my Five Below, for some reason, has collector's packs, I think is what they call them, of comics for out-of-print comics, which they try to pass off as like exciting and rare and valuable, which they're definitely not. But it's $4 for a pack of 4 comics, so that's certainly doable in my opinion. And it's fun to see what might be in there. You can usually see the front and the back one because they have the covers facing out, and then the two in the middle, you're usually going to be surprised by what you get. And I kind of rummaged through. They had quite a few selections, and I kind of rummaged through and just picked one out because I had an old Fantastic Four in it, which we'll get to momentarily, of course. Normally you get usually a Marvel, usually a DC, and then usually in these packs you get something from the 90s. Obviously the market exploded in the 90s, and so in addition to a random DC or Marvel comic, you're going to get an Image book, like an early, like now Image books are, it's a little bit different mentality over Image, but before they were pumping out a lot of stuff. Let's be politically correct. And then, or you're going to get something from like Malibu or CrossGen, one of those 90s upstart companies that didn't survive the bust. This one was a little different. I opened it up and I had 4 Marvel titles. And again, usually you get much bigger variety, but there is plenty of variety in the times they were released. We have 4 different comics from 4 different decades. So we're going to actually work our way back. And the first comic we're going to talk about here on Comics with Ketchup is Storm, number 5 of 6, a limited series that was part of the Prelude to the Wedding of the Century. Now, this is right around the time of Civil War, the superhuman Civil War regarding the Registration Act and so on and so forth. I remember the issue of Black Panther. It was actually Black Panther number 18, was the Civil War ceasefire when everybody was invited to the wedding of Storm and Black Panther. So this miniseries is pre-X-Men Storm. I don't know if this is supposed to be her and T'Challa's first meeting. I'm pretty sure it is. There had been references to them knowing each other prior to this, but this was definitely a big kind of retcon on Marvel's part to say that there had been groundwork for this. This wasn't just some gimmick publicity thing on their part, which it totally was. So, and of course, you illustrate that point by hammering out a 6-issue miniseries. Now, Black Panther had his own story arc. Wow, he had his own series at the time. Black Panther has kind of had series kind of come and go, and this one was no exception. Again, the wedding took place in issue number 18, and I want to say it went into the 30s. I know there was a cover of them as Skrulls, so it definitely went beyond Secret War up into Secret Invasion, Civil War up onto Secret Invasion. Excuse me. So I'm not sure exactly how long it lasted. They just never really kind of seemed to last. But in this issue, again, 5 of 6. It's a very, very weird, random place to start, but that's what you get with these grab bags, right? You don't really get to pick where you start. And Storm is, again, in Africa. This is pre-X-Men. A very young Storm, still kind of the street thief, stealing to survive. There's actually a big back and forth with her and T'Challa in this after they have been together for the first time. And that he's like kind of, looking down his nose at her a little bit on her stealing, and she's trying to let him know that we don't all get to rule an African kingdom, and I steal to survive, not because I'm a thief, which the very definition of stealing makes her a thief. But one can see her point, and we understand perhaps better than T'Challa does that this is a necessity for Storm. But he wants to understand. He's on this sojourn of some kind. I'm not exactly sure what they call it. Walkabout, where he's supposed to go out and see Africa and learn what life is like beyond the walls of Wakanda, basically. And Storm is a great catalyst to help him do that. And, of course, it's not all hunky-dory. There's a group of glorified poachers that apparently have moved on to the deadliest game. And they are after the Wind Rider, is what they call Storm. And, again, this is mutant. I don't know if mutant's quite the known thing. I don't think they refer to her as a mutant at all in this issue. It's just this big deal that she controls the elements, and they think if they control her, they will become rich and powerful and rule the world because they'll have control over her powers. But Storm has those powers already, and she's not rich and powerful and control the world, and I'm sure that these poacher individuals just think that she's not smart enough to capitalize on her powers or something like that. We have a character called the Bull, who's supposed to be this big, strong, brutal guy, and he's actually... He kind of goes back and forth T'Challa a little bit. And you got to remember, this is a young T'Challa. This is hardly the Black Panther T'Challa. T'Chaka, I think is how you pronounce it, is obviously the Black Panther still at this point. It's a bit. It didn't need to be 6 issues. I understand that you want to kind of get Storm's side of the relationship a little bit because she didn't have her own series. X-Men, certainly the Civil War going on is convoluting anything that's going on there. It's, I get what they wanted to do, even though, sometimes these miniseries get a little out of hand and we start getting things we don't need. You can understand where they're coming from with this, but this is just too many extras and all the extra secondary stories, and the secondary stories have their own secondary stories, and it's all just a bit much. And I could honestly say I didn't quite enjoy it, and unfortunately that's my reminder that I didn't. This was written by Eric Jerome Dickey, art by Lan Medina, which I don't have too many complaints about the artwork. He's certainly gotten better. We've seen him recently on Venom is the only thing that pops to mind, really. I know he's still kind of around doing his thing, and not that 2006 was all that long ago, but this was an interesting inclusion in this collection. And something that kind of took me back to Civil War, if nothing else. The best thing I can say about it is it took me back into that Civil War era, and I'm actually kind of grateful for it, for doing that. I really enjoyed that era in comics, and like I said, I immediately thought of that ceasefire issue with Storm and Black Panther standing there to be married, and the profiles of Cap and Iron Man at the foreground of the comic cover. And I think, if I remember correctly, they both left because they didn't think they would be able to behave. So they left immediately after the wedding. Both parties took off. But they did show up for the wedding, so that's good. Let's go back a good... Just killed a spider. Ah! No, I didn't. Ah! And he went under my desk. Son of a bitch. Alright. He's a little too big for comfort, but I'm not going after him. Let's go back 12 years. More Marvel, and we are going 90s full-blown for this one. It is Darkhawk number 37. Now, if you were to pay me $1,000 before, or even more, before I picked up this comic and asked me if Darkhawk's series made it to 37 issues, I probably would have lost that $1,000. It actually went almost to 50 or through 50. I had no idea it went that long. I was well aware of it. Darkhawk's one of those characters, like I see him, I'm like, oh, I love Darkhawk. Why can't I say that? Darkhawk. But I don't know a terrible amount about him. He's got the cool costume. He's got the Wolverine-esque claws on one hand, kind of coming out of a gauntlet. He doesn't have, adamantium claws full on. It's all because of the magical amulet. Never really understood Darkhawk as a younger man reading comics. I just knew that he looked cool. And... kind of had the whole mysterious thing going. I got to know Darkhawk through New Warriors and either several crossovers with Spider-Man or just the one big one. But I definitely remember Spider-Man hanging around with the likes of Speedball and Night Thrasher and, the New Warriors. Darkhawk always being kind of there in that mix. And there's that big crossover, too, with the New Warriors. And I want to say the Punisher was there. And What was that story arc? Darn it, I can't remember. Anyway, this issue features Venom. So again, way 90s. This is written by Danny Fingeroth with Todd Smith on art. They also have a brief cameo from Captain America, which I have to kind of applaud Marvel for showing a little bit of restraint and not throwing Captain America on the cover. I guess they felt that Venom battling Darkhawk on the cover was enough, but a little bit of restraint shown by Marvel in 1994. Don't see that too often, so I thought it was worth noting. And like the Storm miniseries, this one kind of picks off right where the previous issue left off, and certainly lays the groundwork for the next issue. Can't really fault it for that. If you were reading it at the time, you were eating that up. Nobody wrote this thing for the guy who was going to pick it up in part of a comic collection grab bag at Five Below. Very 90s artwork. The guy, Todd Smith, I'm not overly familiar with, but he is definitely working in that kind of house style. It's very Mark Bagley-esque artwork, especially with Venom there. A lot of cross-hatching going on. The coloring is very 90s. Most of what I was reading in the 90s was either Spider-Man or X-Men. I think everybody my age was reading X-Men in the 90s. Most people, period, were reading X-Men in the 90s, but certainly young boys such as myself were big X-Men fans. Very much reminds me of those comics, especially the coloring. The Captain America cameo is actually, well, rather egregious, actually. We have a character I'm not familiar with, a cyborg of some kind, breaking into Avengers Mansion to steal the Evil Hawk amulet, which is kind of the contrast to the amulet that Darkhawk has. And Captain America is the only Avenger on duty at the mansion at the moment, and this guy kind of dispatches Captain America pretty easily. The dialogue of Captain America is pretty atrocious. Clearly, Danny Fingeroth did not have a ton of experience writing Captain America. Most of what I remember about Darkhawk is kind of here, though. Darkhawk. Why can't I ever say Darkhawk? All right. By the time I get the hang of it, we'll be on to the next comic, but that's okay. We're not really sure how he and Venom became intertwined, other than the fact that it was the 90s, and somebody wanted these two to be in the same comic and push Venom. It is actually Operation Symbiote Part 3, The Greater Evil is the name of the story. And there's kind of this... Darkhawk and Venom are kind of after the same person. They're just doing it in a very different style. There's a group of some sort of techno Iron Man suited type guys. Darkhawk refers to them as the Seekers. Dispatches them relatively with ease. Some great battles. The dialogue is 90s and hokey, but what do you expect? But I think it's just the Darkhawk connection. I don't know if I'd give it a pass the way I did because it was Darkhawk. I don't know that if I'd enjoy it as much as if it was somebody else. But for some reason, with it being Darkhawk, I was willing to give it a pass and just kind of enjoy it as what it was. Obviously, nothing, like I said, nothing screams Darkhawk or nothing screams 90s like Darkhawk. Therefore, you throw in Venom and, just that very 90s, again, almost a house-style artwork, and you've got the makings of a wonderful, under a 90s criteria, a wonderful, enjoyable comic book. Darkhawk, just one of those really cool characters, and it was fun to kind of revisit him. Not going to rush out and try to fulfill the run, but whenever Darkhawk and I cross paths, it's a good thing. And at some point, I will have to catch up on Avengers Arena, the current Marvel series written by Dennis Hopeless, because apparently Darkhawk is in that, or at least a version of him is one of the characters in that, and I'm sure he's met his demise by now, or sort of demise, whatever's going on there on Murder World in the current Avengers Arena, which is almost done, so they'll probably be collecting it soon, and those trades will be, I imagine, pretty easy to come by, so I might have to check out what Darkhawk, or again, the current version of him, is up to these days. It should be worth checking out. Let's go back 10 more years to 1984. The Mighty Avengers number 249. Demon Storm is the name of this one, and it is featuring, it says on the cover, Thor, Hercules, the Fantastic Four. Now, it would lead me to believe that featuring Thor and Hercules would mean that they weren't part of the Avengers team, but I know very well that they were. Let's backtrack real quick. The Mighty Avengers. Don't get it confused. This is the Avengers series that has been running for 50 years now. Mighty Avengers is a little confusing because now that Marvel wants every other book of theirs to be an Avengers book, they have to have Mighty Avengers and Secret Avengers and Uncanny Avengers and what else do they have? Young Avengers and did I say Secret already? I probably said Secret already. And Mighty and Nomad Avengers, and they don't have West Coast Avengers anymore. But from issues 241 to 255, the adjective Mighty was included in the Avengers title. And I'm not sure what the thought process behind this was. I know that X-Men, Uncanny X-Men as we know it today, well, sort of. It's X-Men a little convoluted. But, that went by X-Men for a long time before they eventually threw the Uncanny on there. So this is, this is just a great era in Marvel Comics. Avengers specifically. We have a roster that includes Thor, Hercules, She-Hulk, Star Fox, The Vision, Captain Marvel, the Monica Rambeau Captain Marvel. The Black Knight was not in this. I'm not sure. I would have thought, I know he was, if not now, already shortly thereafter he becomes part of the team. Pretty sure he was part of the team during this, but maybe he wasn't around. There is a reference thrown into why Cap isn't in this issue and what he's off doing, and to find out why Cap isn't helping, check out his current issue or whatever it is. Love little things like that. You still get them now, but I don't know, they just don't have quite the same magic, I guess, as they used to. Again, this massive story that features the Avengers, several Asgardians show up. The Warriors 3 come at Thor's request to help with this threat, and they even have to call in the Fantastic Four. We'll get to that in just a minute, though. As it opens, The Snows of Summer is the name of the issue. Written by Roger Stern, art by Alan Milgrom breakdowns, Joe Sinnott and crew finishers. And Hercules is in the Bahamas. Is it Bahamas? Yes. Though the Caribbean, so it could be the Bahamas. Playing guitar, wooing a bunch of vivacious young women, like you do when you're Hercules. Talking about how he's left the team. I don't know if he kind of left in a spat or quite what was going on. This isn't too far removed. We're only a little ways removed from what is that storyline called? The Masters of Evil get together and kind of take everybody out and put Hercules into a coma. Under Siege or something like that, I think is what it's called. Anyway, so we're not too far from that, so I'm sure this is one of those things where he just kind of left in a huff. And some of the beach bums are mad that Hercules is taking all the action. They come to confront him, and all of a sudden it starts snowing. And it gets very, very cold and very, very windy, and right away Hercules thinks that there's something wicked and evil and supernatural going on. Obviously, because that's your first assumption. He swims out to this naval ship that's kind of off the coast, and we cut back all the way back to Titan, which I'm not sure why, one of the moons of Saturn and Thanos' home world, and Star Fox for that matter, who's currently a member of the team. And they have Isaac is this kind of this AI, I guess, on Titan, and he reaches out to the Avengers and lets them know that that they need to kind of prepare for the worst. He brings this grave warning. There's this back and forth between he and Vision talking about this character Maelstrom, who they defeated in the last issue. Again, a lot of references back to what had just happened. While we got that a lot in Storm and Darkhawk, these are more standalone, and it's a lot easier to catch up on what's going on. They kind of hammer it home a lot harder than they do nowadays. They want you to go buy the other issues nowadays, that's why. Vision goes to Captain Marvel and basically lets him know that they send out a distress call, calling in all the Avengers. Wasp shows up, don't tell me the Weathermen are on the loose again, and apparently they ran wild in issue 210. Again, just a lot more charm in those than there is now. Star Fox shows up, Scarlet Witch shows up, Wasp, Captain Marvel already there. They start talking to Hercules, who is in a flying craft of your U.S. Navy. The pilot has been assigned to take him back to New York. Thor shows up and basically verifies that everything that Hercules has been saying about how grave this threat is legit, and that the casket of ancient winters has been broken and all who live are imperiled. And goes through the whole story of actually involving Malekith. We'll have to wait for the movie to come out. However they pronounce it in the movie will be the new preferred pronunciation there. How he shattered this casket and released eternal winter upon the lands of Midgard, that what you call Earth, and all of the shenanigans that happened after they broke this Pandora's box of sorts. And basically the big baddie that we're worried about now is for the Dark Elf acted in the service of the dread demon of fire known in legend as Surtur. Surtur, S-U-R-T-U-R. He has a mighty sword, and he is basically here to end the world. Aren't they always? What cracks me up about this is clearly a big thing. Roger Stern, I don't know how long this Demon Storm series lasted. If it was just a couple issues, this is definitely something I'm going to be further investigating. I was not... my Avengers comic collection in this era is a little bit sparse. And basically, let the Avengers assemble. We see these demon warriors overtake the plane that Hercules and the pilot are in, and this massive battle ensues on the streets of New York. There's snow everywhere, citizens fleeing to the subway, thankfully, and these guys, they look kind of like old school parademons, Perez era parademons that would have been in DC Comics. And they're tearing through. They're getting quite specific in their New York geography, which I found hilarious too in the descriptions of the issue. And then the Avengers show up: Thor, Captain Marvel, Scarlet Witch. Star Fox's powers don't work on these demon type guys, so he's forced to handle it like everybody else's. Scarlet Witch's hexing powers don't quite work the same way either. She's got to figure out different ways to do that. Janet's wasp stings, not doing a whole lot either, but they're still kind of winning the battle. Thor, obviously, doing his thing. Captain Marvel doing her thing. It's a very, very dynamic, fun battle sequence. And again, it's just... the scope of it is so big, and it's just this one issue, more or less. We do get to... I love this. Big, huge battle going on. And Vision's back at the Avengers Mansion trying to call for help. And first calls out to the West Coast team. Hawkeye's automated response answers. He reaches out to Alpha Flight, and basically, yeah, right, Alpha Flight is not going to New York. We don't even have official status with the Canadian government. Vision's like, I couldn't even get a hold of the Defenders of the X-Men. I don't know what to do. And he tried the Baxter Building before, but he's going to try them again. And Reed is letting them know. He's like, hey, I was just about to call you. I think I figured out what the source of the storm is. Vision kind of cuts him off and says they need help. We come back to New York and the battle, and the Warriors 3 have joined the fray, along with Lady Sif and some other Asgardians. And Star Fox is kind of in over his head, and someone reaches out to offer a hand, and it is She-Hulk, who is at this point a member of the Fantastic Four. Reed comes in a version of the Fantastic Car, Johnny Storm hanging out as well, flying around with Captain Marvel. And this is obviously Thing is not on the Fantastic Four team at the moment. He's actually off with the West Coast team, which is why She-Hulk is on the Fantastic Four team. One of the great replacement team members of the Fantastic Four is She-Hulk. Hercules is finally making it into the fray. He thinks I love the dialogue between Hercules and the pilot as they argue back and forth about being able to land the plane or not in New York. Eventually the pilot just ejects Hercules' seat, and he lands on a group of the demons, breaking his fall. So he's quite excited about that. Meanwhile, literally, as the caption reads, meanwhile in a secret complex thousands of miles away. The Maelstrom apparently has clones, not of a villain apparently I'm terribly familiar with, because everything about him in this issue surprised me. Certainly someone I recognized and heard of before, but I had no idea he was kind of going all clones on us here. And he's talking to, what is this guy's name? Death Urge? Is that more references to the last issue? This kind of guy, all in black. He's kind of like the Spectre of Death is basically what I'm getting at here. He's got white boots, white gloves, and a white cape. And other than that, he's all black. Very, very weird and bizarre. Maelstrom is, being all super villainy in his cavern all by himself, his headquarters all by himself. More battle. Hilarious panel of Hercules having a bunch of them rolled up in a giant snowball, which is weird but awesome all at the same time. More banter back and forth between the Warriors 3, Hercules, and Vision as they start to argue over who's stronger, Hercules or Thor. Thor not there to vouch for himself, but the Warriors 3 are certainly doing it for them. And we actually end with this giant splash page at the end of Fantastic Four, and again, the Warriors 3, the Avengers, everybody fighting these demons, and the battle apparently continues in the Mighty Thor number 350, which I think I have in my collection somewhere. For some reason, it sounds random, but for some reason I think I have that issue. And then it also will continue in the Avengers itself as well. I find the contrast of Storm 6-issue miniseries to justify a history between two characters that wasn't there before, versus this massive story with demons and resurrected villains and superhero team ups and everything else is part of a story that's going to take place over several issues, but really downplayed. I mean, this is like big life and death stuff that the Avengers are facing, like they do because they're Avengers. I just think the contrast is hilarious that we get 6 issues of Storm and T'Challa hooking up, and this massive Avengers Fantastic Four Demon Storm story is again pretty much contained to the one issue. We're gonna have a little fallout, little after effects, a resolution since we left on a cliffhanger. It's just wow! It's just the difference is remarkable and frustrating and entertaining all at the same time. All right, let's move on to the last comic in the bundle. We are going to go back another 7 years to 1977, cover date of October, Fantastic Four number 187. Love the cover. This is definitely the winner of the cover battle of these 4 issues. The world's greatest comic magazine, the Fantastic Four, with the circle profiles surrounding the name of it. And on the cover, we have a mystery villain and the Claw, or Claw, just Claw, I guess, the Claw, whatever. Claw battling the Fantastic Four, letting them know, even if you had a chance of beating Claw, you're never going to beat my brand new partner. And Reed turning to the mystery villain, no, not him, it can't be him. Trouble Times 2 is the name of our issue here. And again, just how can you not just love these old stories like this? I just eat this stuff up. You get several characters, several villains. Starts off with a very, very long recap of everything that had just been happening in the Fantastic Four series. I mentioned in the mid-'80s Avengers book, they did a lot of recapping. Well, it's nothing compared to the late 70s recapping in this Fantastic Four issue. Written by Len Wein, George Perez and Joe Sinnott are the illustrators, and it's them coming back from. Let's read this because it's hilarious. The first panel on the first page, Redoubtable Recap Department. Last-ish, the FF rescued young Franklin Richard and his governess, Agatha Harkness, who has got to be the scariest woman in comics, from the supernatural citizenry of New Salem, Colorado, and now they're heading home. Yeah, that's about all you need to know, Frantic One. From here on in, you're on your own. False. There are more editor's notes in this comic than almost any I've ever read, I think. But the Fantastic Four get home in spectacular fashion. They're pogo playing in the Baxter Building and all that fun old school Fantastic Four mentality. And Ben is really put out by the trip they just made. And he's like, I need some relaxing. It's time to curl up with a good stogie and watch some celebrity wrestling. And he goes into his room and finds his room is totally destroyed. And the Impossible Man has been knocked unconscious and shoved through his, quote, best color TV, which I thought was hilarious. But right away, I got really excited because, again, the restraint to not put Impossible Man on the cover. Even in mentality didn't change that much in some aspects between 1977 and 1994. Something, in some ways everything changed, and in other ways nothing changed. So again, a bit of restraint. Nice surprise though, back when you actually be surprised by a comic. And there's concern right away that who could do this? Who could knock out the Impossible Man? And whoever did it might still be in the building. So they all kind of break off, go their separate ways, and everybody's acting a little weird. Kind of dumping on Reed, which I didn't get, or ignoring him outright. And come to find out that at this point, Reed doesn't have his powers. He does not have the fantastic powers at all, and he's really letting it get to him, like, emotionally. Like, is really, really affecting his mental state, I guess, would be the best way to put it. Johnny is circling the building outside. Sue and Ben are, roaming the halls and the floors of the Baxter building. And inside Reed's lab, Thing finds Claw, and he introduces himself, which is really, really nice. The thing is, there's somebody in here. Indeed there is, you grotesque gargoyle, and that somebody is Claw, the murderous master of sound. As if Claw wasn't already ridiculous with that costume and that hand and the power in general. The self-introduction is a little bit much. Again, and mentioning the editor notes, you sure ain't gotten any prettier since the last time we tangled, which apparently was back in Fantastic Four number 119. They go at it. Claw uses kind of the full range of his powers. It's not really doing it. We get a clobbering time spoken, which is always fantastic. And then we get the dreaded, you! Yes, me! Apparently, Claw's partner in crime in this, teased on the cover of the issue, is the Molecule Man. Great, and by great I mean campy and weird, villain, especially Fantastic Four, and if you thought Claw could pontificate, well, he's got a lot to learn, and he could learn it from the Molecule Man, that's for sure. Molecule Man turns Grimm into glass, and he's completely vulnerable and actually appears frozen or something, and we cut back to Reed still in Ben's room with the passed out Impossible Man, and the nanny starts giving him a pep talk that maybe you don't have your powers, but if there's nothing wrong with your mind, why aren't you putting your brain to use and helping the rest of your team track down whatever's going on here in the Baxter building, which would have thought was obvious, but I suppose mental issues like that don't... I don't know, it's a comic. What do you want me to say? I can't even put a sentence together. I'm going to criticize Reed for not thinking of the obvious. We find out why they're there. Claw told Molecule Man about the Psi Amplifier, which is going to make Molecule Man a whole person again, which we'll get to in just a moment. This is the machine that apparently switched the minds between the... Ooh, what is this? The Thing and the Hulk, which I don't think I've ever heard of that story before. Back in Giant Size Superstars number 1, this is the machine that did it, so that they're going to think it's going to help Molecule Man. That's when Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch, bursts in, and they're surprised to see him. They're in the Baxter building, and they're surprised to see the Human Torch. Not to mention earlier, they said they needed to hurry up because if the Thing found them, everybody else should be not far behind. So not only are you in the Baxter building, you just said that everybody else is going to find you soon, and yet you're still surprised to see the Human Torch fly in. Molecule Man surrounds him with water, knocks him unconscious. Molecule Man's powers are fun, a lot of Kirby dots, a lot of that Kirby crackle going on with the which is appropriate. I'm not sure if he's a Kirby creation or not. He very much seems like it. And again, his dialogue is just so over the top and ridiculous. His power set is ridiculously awesome, but I'm thinking pretty sure it's one of those he doesn't quite use the way he could. Seeing like a modern writer like a Jonathan Hickman or Rick Remender, I would love to see what they could do with the Molecule Man. I think that'd be amazing. Sue Storm shows up. Well, not really. She kind of messes around with these guys for a little while before she actually shows up. But she, too, eventually gets captured. Reed comes to the sort of rescuer of her with his own gun of some kind. And Molecule Man, though, turns the gun, his recoil rifle, into helium. So now he's unarmed and helpless and crying about it. Claude disables him, takes him out of the action with his sound devices, sound weapons, and then we get this whole big story about where Claw had been and how he came to be in the partnership of the Molecule Man. Apparently, in issue number 20 of the late lamented Kazar magazine, he'd been whisked away to an alien dimension. He landed in the Everglades. Looked like he had somewhat of an encounter with Man-Thing, or came up on the end of somebody else's encounter with Man-Thing. Came across Molecule Man's staff. Molecule Man trapped inside of it after a battle with Iron Man. And Iron Man Annual number 3. Again, these editor notes are ridiculous, but really, really fun to see all of these seemingly random comic issues come together to form this story and all the elements that kind of go with it. So the editing department back in the day, really, really doing work. That was fun. So they found the body of a kind of an old punch-drunk, past his prime, nobody's going to care about him, boxer to put the Molecule Man into temporarily. They're at the Psi Amplifier in the Baxter Building to make this transition permanent. How many ads? It's like 4 ads in a row. Good Lord. Again, telling the story of what's going on. What their plan is, the James Bond villain approach of now that we're almost there, we're going to stop and tell everybody exactly what's going on. And just as all hope seemed lost, who should show up but the Impossible Man? Very, very upset, and he even admits embarrassed to have been defeated by the likes of these two jerks that he sees before him. Sue is kind of struggling to regroup the troop, the Fantastic Four, putting her protective shield around them as Claw and Molecule Man go after the Impossible Man. Molecule Man thinks that he's defeated him a few times, but Impossible Man lets him know, quite hilariously, that his molecules don't work the same as everything else in this plane of existence. He is now impervious to the Claw's sound powers because his body is apparently non-conductive material, and he also removes his ears, so no sound weapon would be able to hurt him. You gotta love the Impossible Man. And apparently they dispatched Impossible Man in the last issue. This one weirded me out. Okay. Maybe the Molecule Man can't defeat you, Gremlin, but my Sonic Claw has already flattened you once, asterisk. Last ish, right? Now, are you implying that would have happened in the time frame of the last issue, or did we see that in the last issue? Now, I have all of these Fantastic Four comics, so I'll have to go digging through and pull out 186 and find out exactly. And if I remember to do that, I'll be sure to let all of you know, because I'm sure you're all on the edge of your chair right now. And the Impossible Man then makes his own little claw arm gun sound thing, and the claw can manifest the sound into physical beings, these like demons. Impossible Man does it as well, and when they collide, it creates this giant explosion that destroys the lab and takes out everyone except the Molecule Man, who is still there and lets all of us know that the Claw's an idiot, but he served his purpose. He can now go into the Psi Amplifier, and just as he's getting ready to permanently be bonded into this new body, Reed quite literally pulls the plug. And it changes back everything. Ben stops becoming glass. He's back to being the Rock and being awake. And Reed goes up to the Psi Amplifier, this old man, that was shortly the Molecule Man, lamenting everything that happened and trying to understand everything that had happened. Reaches out for the wand. Sue screams, but it's too late. And actually, that's the next line of dialogue. Too late, woman. I caught your foolish husband off guard before he could muster any sort of defense against my mental assault. For all intents and purposes, Reed Richards is dead, woman, and in his place, the Molecule Man reigns supreme. So now the Molecule Man has bonded with the body of Reed Richards. And in the next issue, the Watcher returns just in time for the rampage of Reed Richards. Be here. Again, they just don't make them like they used to. I want to get nostalgic about a comic that came out 5 years before I was born, but how could you not? And these are the comics that, you know, my dad had around the house when I was growing up. Like, he still had all these old issues, and this is what I read as a kid, and this is what I ate up as a kid, and even now as an adult, this is what I eat up. How can you not just love all that story? Again, I just love all the references to everything else that was going on, the Claw's backstory, Molecule Man's backstory, what happened in the last issue, what happened the last time they met Claw, like all these cool things. And if you're at all having a desire, and this might get a little preachy, so I apologize. If you all have a desire to just go back and check out old comics, you don't have to start at the beginning. Like, quite literally, this is a random issue of Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four number 187. They don't get much more random than that, right? But there were references to 5 other issues plus the cliffhanger. So if you're looking to get into older comics, just go grab an old, you know, late 70s, early 80s comics. They're, I don't want to say a dime a dozen, but you can easily find issues like this in quarter and 50-cent bins at conventions, wrapped up in a bag for $1 each with 3 other comics at Five Below. These comics are all over the place, and it could be your gateway into something else, because if you like the character of the Claw, as ridiculous as he was, you can go back and find out how he got in that alternate dimension in the first place. Go back and read Kazar, which is going to help you backtrack to something else, yada, yada, yada. If you kind of like the ridiculousness and over-the-topness of Molecule Man, you can keep reading and find out how long he's bonded to Reed Richards. Probably an issue, if anything. But the Watcher is going to show up, and the Watcher doesn't show up unless something crazy is about to go down. So again, the cliffhanger works. And again, if you just want, it's not necessarily to go back to Fantastic Four number 1 and read from the beginning. But if you can get your hands on the Marvel Omnibus of Fantastic Four, that does cover issues like 1 through 26, I would definitely recommend it, because those old stories are awesome and even more ridiculous than the one we just read. You'll stumble across stories and characters that you never knew exist. My obsession with Carr Brock came out of a random issue of Action Comics I bought. Picked up at random at a convention because I thought the cover looked cool, and it was 25 cents. And I'm like, I'm going to read this copy of Action Comics. And there's the most ridiculous villain I've ever seen in my entire life, and now I'm borderline obsessed with him. So you'll just never know what you'll stumble across, but you need old comics to do it. So if you want the comics I just reviewed and discussed, I don't know if review is the right word, but if you want these comics, let me know. They'll be your launching pad to all sorts of cool stuff, and I'll send them to you for free. So just tell me you want them. That's going to do it for this episode of Comics with Ketchup. It's been a little while. We took almost a week off, a little bit on purpose and a little bit not, after issue 100, and just kind of regrouping and figuring out where to go from here. We've got a lot of regular shows, as you've seen, and not a lot of like in-between type shows. And I think that's going to change. I think I have a new idea for a new kind of regular series going on, more comic-focused stuff. But there's, speaking of regulars, Radical Corner of Turtle Comic Talk next week. Before that, Ryan Lee at the Movies will be coming up at the end of this week. So all sorts of cool stuff going on. Don't want to miss any of it, of course. And the best way to keep up on everything that's going on in the world of Positively Nerdy, PositivelyNerdy.com, Positively Nerdy the podcast, everything would be to follow me on Twitter at Positively Nerdy. And I think that's going to be about it. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. I really enjoy these Comics with Ketchup. I know that they it's a little hard to know exactly what's going to be covered, and the last episode, of Comics with Ketchup, we did a very, very new trade paperback story, and these are again 4 comics from 4 decades of Marvel Comics. So you never quite know what you're going to get on Comics with Ketchup. Hopefully you guys are digging it, because I really want to keep doing it. So. Thank you guys for joining me, and we'll be back soon with some more comic and movie and all sorts of stuff episodes, so stay tuned for all of it. And until next time, celebrate comics, celebrate your fandom.